At 11:41 on a Sunday night, while most of the Pacific Northwest was asleep, the seafloor off the coast of Vancouver Island suddenly lurched. A magnitude 5. 6 earthquake ripped through the crust beneath the ocean, and the shock waves raced outward across the region. People were shaken awake on the northern part of the island. The tremor was felt more than 450 kilometers away in Metro Vancouver, and it rolled south across the border, rattling nerves from Victoria to Bellingham to Seattle and Tacoma. And then, just minutes later, a magnitude 4. 5 aftershock followed. For a moment, millions of people held their breath, waiting to see what came next. And then, nothing. No damage, no injuries, no tsunami. The earthquake faded into the night, and by morning it was just another headline. But here's the thing. The seismologists who study this coastline were not looking at this earthquake and feeling relieved. They were looking at it and thinking about something else entirely. Something far bigger, far quieter, and far more dangerous lurking just offshore. Because this magnitude, 5, 6, carries a terrifying implication. And it is not the one you would expect. So today, we are going to unpack this properly. What actually happened off Vancouver Island, why it was felt across 2 countries, and most importantly, what it really tells us about the monstrous threat that hangs over this entire coastline. Because there's a twist here that most people get completely wrong, and understanding it is the difference between fearing the wrong thing and respecting the right one. I'm going to give it to you straight, the way I always do. The real science, the honest reassurance, and the genuinely chilling reality that the experts live with every single day. No fake foreshock hype, no pretending anyone can predict an earthquake. Just the truth about a silent giant and what it means for the millions of people living in its shadow. Stay with me, because the real story here is far more fascinating than the clickbait version. Before we get into it, do me one quick favor. Drop a comment right now and tell me, where are you watching from? Did you feel this one? If you are anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, from Vancouver Island down to Oregon, I want to know what it was like. And even if you are nowhere near it, tell me, have you ever felt an earthquake in your life? I read every single comment. And if you want to be the first to know the moment the ground moves along this coast or anywhere on the Ring of Fire, subscribe right now. It is completely free. Hit that like button too. Let us push for 5,000 likes on this one so the algorithm gets it in front of the people who live along this coastline and need to understand it. All right, let us get into it. So let us start with exactly what happened. Just before midnight on a Sunday, a magnitude 5. 6 earthquake struck under the ocean, roughly 219 kilometers southwest of Port Hardy, off the northern tip of Vancouver Island. It was shallow, only about 10 kilometers below the ocean floor, and that shallow depth combined with its offshore location is exactly why it was felt across such an enormous area, even though the epicenter itself was far from any town. Here's the key. Shallow offshore earthquakes send their energy efficiently through the solid crust beneath the ocean, so the shaking can travel a very long way, even when the quake is only moderate in size. That is why people from the northern island all the way down to the Seattle area felt their beds and windows rattle from a quake, whose center was hundreds of kilometers out to sea. Canada's National Earthquake Agency confirmed there was no risk of a tsunami, and there were no reports of damage or injuries anywhere. A magnitude 4. 5 aftershock followed within minutes, which is completely normal and expected after an event like this, the crust readjusting after the initial slip. So on the surface, this was a non-event, a strong jolt, a scare, and then quiet. Now let me tell you where this happened, because the location is the first piece of the puzzle. That stretch of ocean off the northwest coast of Vancouver Island is one of the most tectonically complicated places on the entire planet. It sits at a chaotic junction where several different pieces of the Earth's crust grind against each other, a tangle of undersea faults, spreading ridges where new crust is being born, and fracture zones where slabs of rock slide past one another. Moderate earthquakes happen out here fairly regularly. This is a noisy, restless, active neighborhood, and quakes in the 4s, 5s, and even 6s are part of its normal behavior. So when a magnitude 5, 6 pops off in this zone, it is, on its own, not particularly surprising to the scientists who monitor it. It is the region doing what it does. And this brings us to the question that everyone immediately asks, the question that fuels 1,000 scary headlines. Was this a foreshock? Was this the warning tremor before the legendary big one that everyone in the Pacific Northwest has been told is coming? And here I have to be completely honest with you, because the honest answer is the whole point of this video. No. Seismologists do not consider quakes like this one to be precursors to the Great Earthquake. These moderate offshore events happen on the complex tangle of faults out in the ocean, or within the diving slabs of rock beneath the region. They are not the Great Fault itself breaking, and they are not reliable signs that it is about to break. Time and again, when one of these quakes rattles the coast, the scientists come out and gently explain the same thing. This was not likely a precursor to something bigger. So if you were told this magnitude 5, 6 means the big one is coming next week, I could put that specific fear to rest right now. That is not how this works, and that is not what the experts believe. And this is where the story turns, where the real terrifying implication lives. The fact that this quake is not a foreshock does not mean there's nothing to fear. Quite the opposite, because lurking just offshore of this entire coastline is a fault so enormous, so dangerous, and so profoundly different from the noisy faults that produced this magnitude 5. 6, that scientists consider it one of the greatest natural threats in all of North America. Its name is the Cascadia Subduction Zone, and once you understand it, you understand why a harmless magnitude 5 can still carry a chilling message. Let me explain what Cascadia actually is. Running along the coast for roughly 1,000 kilometers, all the way from the northern tip of Vancouver Island down to Cape Mendocino in Northern California, there is a colossal fault where two of the Earth's tectonic plates meet. Offshore, a slab of oceanic crust called the Juan de Fuca Plate is slowly being forced underneath the massive North American plate at a rate of a few centimeters per year. This kind of fault, where one plate dives beneath another, is called a megathrust. And megathrust faults are the only faults on Earth capable of producing the very largest earthquakes there are, magnitude 9 and above. These are the faults that produced the catastrophic quakes and tsunamis in Sumatra in 2004 and Japan in 2011. And Cascadia is exactly this kind of fault, sitting right off one of the most beautiful and increasingly populated coastlines in the world. Now here is the history that should make you sit up. We know Cascadia produces monsters because it has done it before, and we can date the last one with astonishing precision. On the night of January 26th in the year 1700, the Cascadia Subduction Zone ruptured along its entire length in a single catastrophic earthquake estimated at a magnitude somewhere between 8, 7, and 9. 2. It sent a tsunami racing across the entire Pacific Ocean, a wave so large it was recorded in the written histories of Japan 10 hours later and thousands of miles away, allowing modern scientists to pinpoint the exact date. It reshaped the coastline, drowned forests in salt water, and lives on in the oral histories of the indigenous peoples who witnessed it. And it was not a one-off. Geologic evidence buried in the coastal mud reveals at least 19 of these great earthquakes over the past 10,000 years, striking on average roughly every 500 years. The last one was over 300 years ago. Do that math, and you understand why scientists talk about this fault the way they do. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates something like a 10 to 15% chance of a full-length, magnitude 9 Cascadia earthquake in just the next 50 years. That is not a distant, abstract maybe. That is a genuine looming probability within the lifetimes of people alive today. And when Cascadia finally goes, it will be a catastrophe on a scale this continent has never seen in modern times. We are talking about violent, ground-buckling shaking that could last not seconds, but 3, 4, 5 minutes, an eternity in an earthquake. We are talking about a massive tsunami that would slam into the outer coast within minutes, far too fast to outrun. Scientists have even found that the quake could cause the land itself to suddenly drop by up to 2 meters in an instant, permanently sinking parts of the coastline and dramatically worsening the flooding. Vancouver Island, sitting only about 160 kilometers from the fault, would be hit hard. Victoria, Seattle, Portland, the entire region would be reshaped in an afternoon. This is the giant that the experts are really thinking about, not the magnitude 5. 6. The magnitude 9 that has not happened yet. So now, here is the terrifying implication. The real one, the one that's the fake foreshock stories completely miss. You would think that a fault this dangerous would be constantly rumbling, giving off warning tremors, building up to its great release with a crescendo of smaller quakes. That is what many people assume, but the truth is the exact opposite, and it is genuinely chilling. The Cascadia megathrust is eerily, unnervingly quiet. Unlike California's San Andreas Fault, which chatters away with frequent small and moderate earthquakes, the Cascadia Fault is locked and silent. It sits there, jammed tight, storing up centuries of pressure without releasing it in small doses. In fact, this silence is one of the reasons Cascadia has been so hard for scientists to study. It barely makes a sound. Do you see the implication now? The earthquakes we feel along this coast, like this magnitude 5, 6, like the ones before it, are almost all coming from the other faults, the noisy ones, the complicated offshore tangle, the diving slabs. Meanwhile, the one fault that will actually devastate the region, the Great Megathrust, is making almost no noise at all. And that means when it finally does rupture, it will very likely come with little to no warning. There will probably be no crescendo of foreshocks, no obvious buildup, no chance for the experts to say, it's happening this week. The silence is the danger. The quake we felt is not the threat. And the real threat is precisely the one we cannot feel coming. That is the terrifying implication of a magnitude 5, 6 off Vancouver Island. Not that it is a warning shot, but that it is a reminder of the silent giant next door. A giant that gives no warning shots at all. So what do you do with that? This is where the story turns from fear to power, because the answer is genuinely empowering. If you cannot rely on a warning before the great earthquake, then the only real protection is to be ready before it ever arrives. And the people of the Pacific Northwest have been learning to do exactly that. First, there's technology on your side. Both the United States and Canada now operate earthquake early warning systems that use sensors to detect the very first, fastest moving waves of a large quake and send an alert to phones and public systems, potentially giving you precious seconds to drop and take cover before the violent shaking arrives. Sign up for those alerts and make sure they are enabled on your phone. Second, and this is the single most important rule if you live anywhere near the coast, learn these words and burn them into your memory. Long or strong, get gone. If you feel an earthquake near the coast that is either violently strong or a long, rolling shake that lasts a minute or more, do not wait for any official tsunami warning. Do not wait for a siren. Move immediately to high ground on foot as fast as you can, because a Cascadia tsunami could arrive in minutes, faster than any alert. That one piece of knowledge can save your life. And then there is the everyday preparation that works no matter when the giant wakes. Secure your tall furniture, your bookshelves, and your water heater to the walls so they cannot fall on you. Keep a grab bag ready with water, food, medications, a flashlight, and a battery radio. Have a plan with your family for where you will meet and how you will reach each other when the phone networks fail, because in a magnitude 9, they will fail. Practice drop, cover, and hold on until it is pure instinct. Know your tsunami evacuation route if you live on the coast, and know your high ground. None of this is expensive, and none of it depends on predicting the unpredictable. It simply means that whenever the silent giant finally stirs, you and the people you love are ready. Let me leave you with the bigger truth, because I think this whole story is a perfect lesson in how to think about danger. It is human nature to fear the thing that makes the most noise, the quake that shakes us awake, the headline that screams. But the deepest dangers are often the quiet ones, the ones that do not announce themselves. The magnitude, 5. 6 off Vancouver Island was loud and frightening and completely harmless. The fault that will one day reshape this coastline is silent, patient, and lethal. And the wisdom is in knowing the difference, in not panicking over the loud, harmless jolt, while never forgetting the silent, sleeping giant just offshore. The scientists who watch this coast are not lying awake in terror over every magnitude 5. They are doing careful, patient work, and they are asking all of us to do one simple thing: respect the giant enough to be ready for it. Because we cannot stop Cascadia. We cannot predict the day, but we can prepare. And preparation, in the face of a threat that gives no warning, is the most powerful thing any of us can do. We are going to keep tracking every significant quake along this coastline and everything the science reveals about Cascadia. So subscribe so you never miss an update, and drop that comment I asked for at the start. Where are you watching from, and did you feel this one? Because behind every tremor off that coast are millions of real people living beside a silent giant, and understanding it is how we all stay ready. Let us hit 5,000 likes on this one. Stay safe out there, know your high ground, look out for the people around you, and I will see you in the next one.